right, welcome class to lesson 2. This is equations and tables. Your objective is I can translate between equations and tables by using inputs and outputs. And our vocab is going over the vocab from 9.1, which was independent variable, which is the value that determines the value of a dependent variable. And then a dependent variable, which is the value determined by the value of an independent variable. So the dependent variable depends or relies on the independent variable. So we're going to use the same wording, same concept, different wording this lesson. So here we have an equation, y equals x plus 3. And let's say that we did this input. So we input 2 into this equation, and our output would then be 5. So our input is our independent variable, whereas our output is our dependent variable. So our independent variable is the input. So we would input 2 here. So if we were to input this, it would be y equals 2 plus 3. And our y is our dependent variable, which would become 5. Same thing here. So if our input is 4, that's our independent variable. So we're plugging that in to the independent variable, which would be right here, plus 3. Our output would be what then? Our output would be 7, because 4 plus 3 equals 7. So that's our input and our output. So let's try a example, unlock the problem, and then we can get started on those steps. So for this, I need to use the equation to complete a table. So I need to start by creating my table. This table is going to be a little bit different than the table you're going to make usually. This is going to be a table that explains a little bit more how this works. So our input is first, then our output, and in this example I'm going to have the rule. Then I have my x and my rule, which is my equation. So it's 3x plus 1.75, and my output, which is y. So if I plug in 1 to our input, or our x, it would be 3 times 1 plus 1.75, which when we do the math, it would be 3 times 1 is 3 plus 1.75, which would give us 4.75. Now I'm going to do that for 2. So I'm going to input my independent variable. Now to get my dependent, or my output, I'm going to multiply 3 times 2, which gives me 6, plus 1.75, which gives me, no, not 5, 7.75. Now with 3, so I have 3, and I'm inputting my independent variable. 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1.75 gives us 10.75. And finally with 4, I'm going to input that, so I have 4, nope, not 4, 3 times 4 plus 1.75. 3 times 4 is 12 plus 1.75, which gives me 13.75. And that's it. My table is done. I have my input and my output. So here, it's with that information, we can determine that x in this case is our independent variable, which is the same as our input, whereas the y is our dependent variable and is the output. All right, let's see our steps. We're going to use the same problem. So it says create an input-output table. So sometimes it'll be given to you, and other times you have to create your own. So I'm going to move this. And I'm going to do a basic one this time. So I'll do input, output. And the problem, this equation uses the variables y and x. So our dependent variable is y, because it is in front, it's by itself in front of the equal sign. And x is our independent, because we can change that and it'll affect the y. So I'm going to create an input table. Ta-da! Step 1. Create an input-output table. What you want to do actually before you're done is write the variables. So the input here is x, because I'm inputting numbers into x to solve for my dependent. So my dependent, which is my output, because it's what I get out of the problem, is y. So that's my lovely dandy table. And now for step 2, I need to plug in independent variables, or the input. So you need to decide on one input. So I decided on 1 in this case. And I'm going to plug that into my equation, which is what? 3, well, no, it's not 3. It's y equals 3x plus 1.75. So I need to plug in my variable, which would be 3 times 1 plus 1.75. Now I need to solve. So it would be so then my output here would be 4.75. So step 4 is just to repeat until the table is complete. So I'm going to do this a minimum of 2 more times. So we should have it 3 times. So if I plug in y equals 3 times 2, that's 1.75. Then it would give me 7.75 and a minimum of 3 inputs. Now it would be and see, now my table is done. So let's try that with some examples. So example 1 is I need to use the equation to complete the table. So I need to create my input-output table. And the variables being used here, my independent variable is x here, and my dependent variable is y. So I need to plug that in. Remember, my input is my independent, output is my dependent. And I can choose any number. So let's do 2, 4, and 6. So I need to plug those in. So I'm going to plug in 2, which equals 12. So when my input is 2, my output is 12. My second one is 4. So 6 times 4 is 24. When my input is 4, my output is 24. And then I have, when my input is 6, my output is 36. And that is it, guys. My table is now complete. Let's try something a little different. All right, so here we have y equals 3x plus 4. We are given this table, which is the inputs are already given to us. So we didn't get to decide what inputs we want, so we have to find our outputs. So let's plug that in. So our first one is 10. So I'm going to plug in 10. So it's 3 times 10 plus 4. So when my input is 10, my output is 34. Let's try that with 15. So when my input is 15, my output is 49. And finally, if I plug in 20, so when I have these inputs, those are my outputs. So that would be my final answer here. We can box this one too. All right, let's try another different one. For this problem, I need to create my equation. And I need to find out what the question mark is. So I'm going to look at, and I'm going to compare my input, which is x, and my output, which is y. So I have, what is the relationship between 2 and 16? Well, I know I can multiply 2 by 8 to get 16. Let's see if that would work over here. Can I multiply 4 by 8 to get 32? Yeah. What if I multiply 5 by 8? Do I get 40? I do. So it works if you multiply everything by 8. So then my equation would be y equals, y is on the outside because it is our dependent variable, and it's our output. And I'm saying that I need to multiply whatever my input is, so anything for x, by 8. So I can put 8x. Hello, Miss Luigi of the future in the editing room coming in to explain that the reason it's 8x is because 8 is what is consistent here. So everything is being multiplied by 8. So 2 times 8, 4 times 8, 5 times 8. So that's why it's 8x. Because what is consistently the same here is 8. So we have to do 8 times x because our input is changing, but 8 is going to stay the same. So now let's solve for our missing. So we have y equals, and I plug in my input, and 8 times 3 is 24. So question mark equals 24. So you just need to compare the relationship between your input and your output whenever you're given a problem like this. Find a relationship. Not like a lovey-dovey relationship, but like a relationship between these two. Alright guys, that is it for today. Go ahead and get started on your homework, and I will see you at your meeting time. Bye guys.